Hello, welcome to another day's desk. Today, it's a bit of a heart wrench for me, this one, because it's a subject very, very close to my home. Today, I'm speaking with Sam Warner, who is the Autistic Interpreter. Cool thing. Sam's expertise is in helping people become more aware and self-aware of autism. She helps people from education through into the workplace and beyond, specialising in the IT industry, but she helps people be more comfortable in their skin around autism, be it if it's about them or the people they're alongside, so that everyone can have a more productive and comfortable working life and life in general. So let's pick our brains, see what we can learn. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
How you doing today?
Groovy. How you doing?
I'm cool. That's a nice hair. That's a cool barnet you've got there. What we got in the hair? Flowers? Or
They're clips, yeah, because I've got really, really long hair and it's a bit unruly, so I thought I'd take it away.
Unruly hair. I love that expression. So tell us about well, first of all, let's start with what is an autistic interpreter?
Well, so I spent the first 35 years of my life not realizing that I was a bit different. I mean, I always felt like an alien. And
35?
I did. And
Wow.
I did ask if I was adopted by my parents because I didn't understand them and they didn't understand me. Even though we had a family resemblance, I still couldn't quite believe that we were related. And I had a bit of an aha moment when I was 35 and realized, oh goodness me, I'm autistic. Wow, okay, that's a bombshell. But since then, because I have a voracious appetite for research, I have read so much, listened to so much, talked to so many people, just thrown myself into the whole thing. And I'm 48 now, so I've had quite a few years now to employ what I've learned. So I can now talk to neurotypicals and talk to autistic people and become this interpreter between the two teams, if you like.
So on a stress level of 0 to 10, if before when you were sort of growing up, if it was a 9 or a 10, what is it like for you now? How much more comfortable are you now?
I would say, in terms of comfortable in my own skin and who I am, I am a 10 out of 10 positive.
That's better than everyone, that is.
Yeah, that's better than everyone because I've never been happier than I am now,
Wow.
which is fantastic. And it's true that the older you get, the less thoughts about other things you give. If you get my drift. you care less about what other people think of you in particular, and you care more about what positive differences you can make to others. So paying forward the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
I mean, much like teachers, that's obviously their passion, that they pay forward the knowledge they've got to the next generation. Absolutely get that vibe. I worship teachers. I couldn't do that as a job. I don't have the discipline. I like the freelance aspect of what I do.
Cool. Okay, well, I mean, for those who don't know, in my life, I'm touched with ASD through my son. My wife would say me as well, and I would say it's my wife, of course, but probably both of us, to be fair. But my son has severe autism, and it's got so challenging during lockdown that he's sadly now in a residential. So he between you and him, it's like the opposite ends of a huge spectrum. And for those who don't understand what a spectrum is, you can have someone who's so mild in their experience of autism that nobody and they wouldn't even know. It's just that perhaps they like detail. And then at the far end, you can have people who, let's just say, they don't have autism, autism has them.
Yeah, that would be fair to say. Those are the kinds
Yeah.
of people who are unlikely to ever have a job, will always need care of some kind, whether it's at home or in a residential facility.
Yeah.
And also, in particular, cases like that where you're up that far end of the spectrum, the Rain Man end, unfortunately, quite often violence comes along with that package because that person's unable to regulate their emotions.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge ask to expect people to be able to put up with that all the time. So absolutely, I'm so glad that there are facilities available to help give parents a break.
So, be it in the classroom as a student or a teacher managing a classroom, be it in the workplace as an employee or an employer or a team leader with a team potentially with people on the spectrum within it, what are some of the biggest myths that get told around ASD? Sorry, autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah, that horrible word disorder. Grr.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Condition. Let's go for condition. So some of the biggest myths are, what's your superpower, which is a pet peeve of mine. I'm not a superhero. I mean, I quite like to be, but I'm not. The reason why I am a polymath and I have multiple talents is because I have the ability to hyper focus. So when you hyper focus on something, you get really good at it,
Right.
just like everyone else does. And a lot of people will measure you by their own limitations. So they might believe that you can only be good at one thing. And that's not necessarily true if you're able to focus on. I'm not saying you're focusing on all of the things all of the time. It just might be sequential, and then you happen to be good at multiple things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a myth, that you have one special interest for your entire life and you're really amazing at that, like trains or something stereotypical. It's a myth that autistic people cannot learn eye contact. So I had to learn it. I didn't know that I wasn't doing the eye contact thing
Wow.
until people told me it's rude that you don't look at me when I'm talking to you. And I'm like, how is it rude? I'm listening to you. Why do I have to look at you to listen to you? I'm using my ears, not my eyes, to hear you.
That was so Kevin and Perry, Sam. That was. Why do I have to look at you?
Oh, doesn't make any sense. So that's a myth. And if you can give eye contact, actually, it's really hard for people to get diagnosed, particularly as adults, because unfortunately, the education for psychiatrists and psychologists that are giving diagnoses, one of the criteria is whether or not they can give eye contact. So if someone's learned to do that, they're obviously not autistic. Not true. Not true at all. Which is why when I do my videos, my eyes are all over the place because the camera's a bit like a pair of eyes. And other stereotypes that I want to myth bust, I suppose, is the whole thing that autistic people are less than in some way. Less than in terms of intelligence, perhaps less than in terms of emotions and empathy. And the biggest one of that is empathy. There's more than one kind of empathy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually, it's the demonstration of sympathy that people don't necessarily get from an autistic person.
Well, good distinction. Yeah.
And that's what they're peeved about, because they're like, I told you something and I want there. Now, it'll all be better. And what I've actually got is, that was a bit silly, wasn't it? Let's try and fix it. And they go, oh, you're not very empathetic. I'm like, no, I can understand how it feels to be you. What I'm saying is, you're a twonk, and actually, let's fix the problem. Rather than there, poor you, which doesn't solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's those kind of things that I try to tackle when I'm teaching the groups.
And there is no template, is there? Every single person on the spectrum is different.
Exactly. You can have 1,000 people in the room who
Yeah.
are all autistic and they wouldn't be two the same.
Which is a nightmare for, and again, another label, neurotypical people, be it teacher, parent, or business owner, or business leader, or team manager. Therefore, it is nigh on impossible to say, yes, I really understand autism. And, I've got people in my team, let me tell you about them. That's like saying every person on the spectrum is brilliant with detail. Well, I know a smashing young lad called Alex Evans, who's not that good at detail. He's reasonably high on the spectrum. He's a phenomenal professional speaker, one of the most creative minds I've ever met in my life. Lovely man, very empathic, doesn't do that. So everything's a myth, right? All we need to do is understand the individual more. So you say you didn't find out until 35. How did you discover that you were?
So I was working at an IT corporation company, small one, and which was full of IT blokes and a couple of women. And someone happened to say to me, we were talking about jobs where we'd worked. How come you always end up working for places with loads of men in it? And I was like, oh, that's weird. I hadn't noticed that before. But what I'd done is I'd subconsciously or unconsciously chosen places where I like the way they communicate. And men in general, massive generalization here, but men in general tend to say what they mean and mean what they say, which makes communication so much easier. There's none of this skullduggery or hints and nuance and reading between the lines and, oh, you said this but you meant that. How am I supposed to know? I can't work that stuff out. So I was curious because something had been sparked in my head, and I did one of these online tests. It was like 50 questions, and they said if you score over 32 out of 50, chances are you might have Asperger's, which doesn't even exist now in the DSM-5. So I did it, and I scored higher than everybody. I got 42 out of 50.
Ah.
Which is hilarious.
Which if it's a survey out from the Psychology's website, you go, ooh. If it's from Cosmo, you go, yeah. But
yeah, exactly. And it was based on Simon Baron-Cohen's full ASPE test that was put together with the University of Cambridge. So based on science.
So it was a moment then.
Yeah, it was. It was a real. It felt like a door had opened in my head, and I was like, oh look, there's light up there. Let's go find out what that is.
Which I suppose, no matter how old you are when you discover it, whether you're in primary school or whether or not you're a chief executive, and I've met chief execs who've only just discovered in their 40s and 50s, it must be both absolutely liberating and terrifying in equal measure.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I went on a neuro-linguistic programming course that was suggested to me mainly because it helps you to become more self-aware. It's a reflective sort of program.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that would be really handy because no one ever gives me any feedback. They tell me off for things, but they don't tell me why it's no good and how to fix it, ever.
Welcome to my world. Get told off all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas the neurolinguistic programming created scenarios that we could do as a team. And then there was this reflection period afterwards about what happened, what behaviors, the impact of behaviors. And I understood my impact on the world.
Wow, right. Okay.
Yeah, it really was a wow. And yes, some of it was really confronting. There were some things about myself like, oh, I don't like that. Well, I don't want to be like that. No wonder I've got no friends.
Wow.
And since those aha moments, and then reading voraciously things like Olivia Fox-Cabane's book, The Charisma Myth. Did you know that no one's born with charisma? It's a learned thing, which means anyone can learn it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense.
You know, some of the big hitters that other people will have read, I'm sure, you know, the chimp paradox, Professor Simon Peters, I think it is. Simon Peters, someone like that.
Somebody Peters, yeah.
Yeah.
Professor Peters,
let's go for that, yeah. But it's that whole, oh, that so makes sense now. That's why I behave like this in a given situation. Now I can get my head around what's going on. I can do something about it. I can choose to behave one way or another. But until I've kind of shaped it, it's just a thing. It's like raw. Does that make sense?
So I get how amazing and challenging that would have been for you. Now I'm going to flip it. So let's just say whether you are a teacher, a parent, or a team leader, how do you, without judging, labeling, stereotyping, calling people out in any way, what are some of the traits we should be looking for so to enable us to be a little more accepting and understanding, especially for younger people as well?
So some of the easiest things to spot are sensory sensitivities, because quite often sensory processing disorder, that word again, but quite often that comes hand in hand with autism. It's like a bad smell you can't get rid of. And that means sensitivity to light, taste, touch, just as you'd imagine, temperature, all of those things. So if you're in a classroom scenario, what have you got there?
got an orange and yellow button. I keep them in my pocket everywhere I go because my son is obsessed with orange and yellow buttons, and
Ah,
he fiddles them like that as a sensory thing.
great. Fantastic. I haven't got my bag with me. Or have I? No, I haven't. I've got a bag full of all sorts of different shapes and toys and fiddly things, stretchy things. And whenever I deliver my training content, I put all these toys out so that people can play with them. And that's not just autistic people, that's everybody. Because as soon as they play with the stuff, they concentrate on what I'm saying. It's not just autistic people. But it really, really can help autistic people by soothing their brain, their creative brain, which wants to play with the toy, so that their logical side of the brain can listen to what's going on. And teachers might notice that children are becoming particularly fidgety. So why wouldn't you give a child something to fiddle with quietly, a quiet toy, a squishy one or something? Or if they are needing to move physically, they might be rocking or twiddling or kicking their legs or even using their hands a lot. They're not being naughty, because not all kids can sit down, shut up and do as they're told, because their whole body is brimming with energy and they need to spend it in some way. So if it's disruptive to the other kids, if they don't need to sit at the front because they've got glasses like I did, if they could sit further back, then fewer children would see them moving. So that's a way. And then that child could quite happily, if they needed to, rock, because that actually is soothing whilst they're listening.
I'm so glad you're saying this, because when I excuse me, when I realised that one of the technical terms for it is stimming, isn't it?
It is, yes.
They're stimulating themselves.
Yes.
Whereas we go, this is brilliant. A lot of people on the spectrum can't verbalise that effectively, so they do it physically. So my son flaps and jumps up and down on his feet. I've seen people who spin round, and which I love the fact that these days young people are so much more accepting. I mean, and I'm ashamed of this, of my generation, but I know in my high school, if someone would have stood up in the classroom and started going like this, jumping up and down, spinning around, you know, they'd have had a life of torment in our school. Whereas these days, a lot of the time, they're far more accepted. And like yourself, who grew into adulthood and into the industry without realising at first, I see entrepreneurs, captains of industry, team members, employees, staff members, who in some way do stim, or they're constantly bobbing up and down on their feet, or they like to sort of rock.
Or they've got the pen going.
Yeah. And again, it's important to say, and I'm sure you would potentially agree, that, you know, we mustn't, just because someone's doing one little behaviour, doesn't go, autistic spectrum. Yeah, you should look for several profiles and and have a test.
So we were talking about the spectrum earlier, and it's so true about this sort of rainbow spectrum. But the thing that people don't seem to understand is that isn't flat. It's not on one dimension. It's also this way. So somebody might experience a set of traits. Say there's 500 traits of autism, including ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, the whole smorgasbord of loveliness that is differently brained. Well, you might experience that trait to a lesser extent or a greater extent. So for you in a given scenario, you might have a meltdown because this happens, or you might just be a bit irritated, but it's the sum of that and 5 other things which gives you the meltdown. So you can't say that those two people are the same, even though they have the same trait, because it might be a different amount, if you like. And that's so hard to understand.
And I'm really embarrassed, because one of the conditions my son developed in his, as he went through puberty, and I'm so ashamed, I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's an inability to process a demand made upon them. Demand avoidance.
Pathological demand avoidance.
There we go. PDA. Now, for a teacher or a team leader or a boss, that is very hard to cope with in someone.
It is.
Unless you can get your head around the fact that we need to give people very simple instruction and give them a choice and an option, and rather than make a demand upon them. So, I mean, I see confrontations between teachers and students all the time, only because demands are being made rather than questions asked.
Totally. So my husband has PDA, he's autistic, and so do I. So that makes for a very interesting relationship, trying to get tasks done around the house. So what we tend to do is we acknowledge the list of tasks that we have, and then we break them off into pairs, and we say, so do you want to do the washing up, or do you want to do the hoovering? So there's no, do you want to do a task? There's going to be some task doing, pick one. So the choice is there, but it's a given that it happens, and we both have to do them at the same time, so the other person doesn't feel like they're missing out.
Great.
So if Dave went off and played a game on the computer and I'm washing up, I'm going to feel all my inner child is going to come out and go, but I want to play a game.
Yeah, no one ever says, but I want to wash up. No.
Yeah. So that's how we kind of figure things out. Okay, I might not live in a spotless house because we do resist these things, but they do get done from time to time. But we have these great bursts of doing, and that's quite common, that there'll be lots of not doing. And it can get as extreme as not doing to the detriment of that person. And as an adult, it's particularly tricky because that might mean not paying bills on time, ending up with CCJs, losing your home, because the demand of having to phone a utility or respond back is too great. I'll do it tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow never comes. And that's when they might need some help, but they often don't know how to ask for help. And even kids, who aren't doing homework in on time, maybe there's a reason. Maybe they are in the grip of PDA.
God, Sam, there is so much I want to ask you. And honestly, I think if you're gracious enough to allow me to pick your brains a bit more at some point, I'd love to come back and do a second one, because I try to keep these for time so that people can listen to them on the to or from the journey to work, etc. But thank you. And if you could leave us with one thing anyone can do to make the life of anyone they know or are related to or love who's on the spectrum a little bit easier, what would that one thing be?
The one thing I would ask you to think about doing is don't assume anything. Don't foist your thoughts onto that person and think that's best for them. Ask them.
And that's not just true of people on the spectrum, is it? It's anybody.
No.
But it's great advice for life. Sam, you're an absolute star. Thank you. And one day hope to interview again. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
See you soon on another Dave's Desk.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Then click the TV to watch the next video. Oh, and don't forget to visit our website at davidhyner.com to claim your free audiobook. Until the next time, go Rhino. Avin it.